which was not nearly long enough. Taking into consideration just about any and every form of health, mental, emotional, physical, and even societal, theists are healthier and happier than atheists, and, as we saw above, more charitable. Bullshit. There was one quote by Dawkins that I remember about how he prefers charities that aren't run as a church, but theists are more charitable? Really? Holding a sandwich ransom. Oh, you want to eat? You're hungry? You want the sandwich? Go listen to that priest over there. Listen to him for 4 hours, and then when you convert to our religion and promise to give us 10% of whatever income you might scrounge up in this poverty-stricken world that we're in, whenever you earn something, we get 10%. So, you want the sandwich? You want the sandwich? You want to survive until tomorrow? Become our slave. Charitable. Fuck you. More specifically here, less emotionally. It may be true that theists are more charitable. It may be true that they are healthier and happier. I doubt that, because all I have to do is really point out creationist medicine, the Christian medicine people, the ones who believe that prayer is better than, say, antibiotics. A lot of those kids die. They fucking die. Are those people healthier and happier? I doubt it. Are any atheists stuck in the same paradigm where you have to believe that a magic man is going to cure you more than, say, medication? Well, no, they're not. So, are they healthier and happier? It is no more to the point to say that theists are happier than atheists than to say a drunk person is happier than someone who is sober. And I'm borrowing that quote. I forget from who. I'm paraphrasing it a little bit. I don't remember the full quote. But yeah, saying that theists are healthier and happier than atheists is no more to the point than saying that alcoholics are healthier and happier than sober people. Being a junkie may make you happier, but it doesn't make you right. And more charitable. Okay, that one specifically. It may be true that religious people donate more than atheists. Maybe it is true. I don't have the numbers. I'm not going to look up the numbers, and this article certainly isn't going to give you the fucking numbers. It's enough that they assert it as a fact and move on, as we've seen from every chapter before this. But even if that were the case, that does not make God real. If atheists gave no money to charity, it would not make God real. If atheists stole money from charity, all atheists, all the time, stole money from charity, it would not make God real. If atheists were mass-murdering sociopaths, the way theists are, it would not make God real. It would make atheists mass-murdering sociopaths who steal from charities, which they are not, because, as is often pointed out, the atheistic population in the United States is something like now 15 or 20%. The population, the last number that I checked for the prison population of people who call themselves atheists as they come in, is something like 0.1% or 0.01%. So we have, if we have an even distribution of just religiosity has no relationship to if someone is more violent, we should expect to see about 15 to 20% of the prison population being atheist. If we have an even distribution, just random people go to jail, atheists would be about 15% of prison population. What we see, in fact, is that religious people, especially Christians, are the overwhelming majority in prisons, and that from a 15 to 20% minority, you have a prison population that is like 100 times smaller than the proportion that you should expect if it was, if religion didn't matter. And if religion did matter, if religiosity kept people out of jail, if being Christian kept people out of jail, you should see 100% of prisoners in jails who are atheists. But you see a tiny proportion, less than 1% of the prison population is people who are said to be less healthy, less happy, and far less charitable, and completely unhealthy in society. You know, the claim here is being made that in every form of health, including societal health, atheists are worse than theists. Well, we just know that that is fucking wrong, and the prison population shows it. Atheist majority countries like Japan, like Sweden, they have far more societal health than the United States does. And even in the United States, if you go to the states that are most atheistic, and you compare them to the states that are most religious, the most religious states are the worst in the country, and the least religious states are the best off. They're the most healthy states. So, in the world at large, this is false. In the microcosm that is the United States, this is false. And even to some extent, inside of states, in different cities, this is shown to be false. So, at every level, this claim fails. Healthier and happier, perhaps in terms of physical health, some theists are healthier. In terms of happiness, perhaps it helps you be happy when you think that there's an all-powerful Magicman who really loves you all the time, 100%, no matter what you do. Maybe that does help you be happier. Do some fucking smack and shut the fuck up about God already then. Because there's no difference between drug and your God at that level. More charitable, okay. Atheists give less to charity. Fine. One of the reasons might be because charities are run by churches and we don't want to give money to the fucking churches. Maybe. I mean, while we're just throwing shit out there. Another reason why this might be bullshit is people like Bill Gates. Bill Gates, atheist, one of the richest men on the planet, donates a lot to charity. He runs a lot of charities, in fact. Oh, that doesn't count. He's an atheist, but he's an exception, so we can just say all atheists are not charitable, right? No, okay, it says here atheists are more charitable. In every form of health, mental, emotional, physical, and even societal, theists are more charitable. The fuck does that mean? So, you know, I've been deconstructing this point for a long while now. I don't even know how long this video is so far. But this is the first sentence. And this is how terrible this point has been so far. And it's just, it keeps going. It just keeps going. And I'm going to have to address more of the stupid bullshit, but it just keeps going. It doesn't stop. Many studies are cited as evidence in the next section. Well, good for you. I really hope you have some fucking evidence, and I hope you follow the evidence to the rational conclusion, not, here's some evidence, therefore scary. But of course I know that this is not going to be the case. 11.1, Atheism and Charity. The year 2008 and 2009 presented interesting examples of atheist concepts of charity, more accurately donations. Atheists in both the USA and London collected hundreds of thousands of pounds during a time of developing worldwide recession, not in order to help anyone in need, but in order to purchase bus ads and billboards to advertise just how clever they consider themselves. Right. First off, fuck you. Second, fuck you. I don't see the Vatican doing much to solve the world's problems with, you know, throwing money. The richest fucking tiny little manor on the fucking planet. They're just filled with treasures, and instead of melting it down and feeding the homeless for a fucking decade, no, they're just buying fancier hats for their Pope Benedict. Fucking Nazi motherfucker. Yeah, right. Here's another way of looking at that. Religion is the most harmful thing on the fucking planet. An ad campaign that people didn't just, oh, all of our money is going to this unique purpose, a campaign that people donated to of their own free will, while perhaps even donating elsewhere, or donating nowhere else, and it doesn't matter a fucking bit. They can give money to the charities they fucking want. Religion being the most harmful thing in the world, a bus campaign and billboard campaign to try to fight against the tide of religious ignorance and hatred. Guess what? Maybe that would do a little bit more than giving a sandwich to a homeless guy. just maybe, reversing the negative influence of religion on the world, and thereby allowing us to live in a world that is infinitely better than the shitty one that religion has made today, is better than making yourself feel good by feeding the homeless in Africa. That's my opinion. Maybe I'm way off, but hey, Sam Harris said it earlier, if he could be given a magic wand and could eliminate either rape or religion, religion is the one I would go with. And the same thing goes for charity. I would rather give charity money to this kind of ad campaign to reverse the tide of stupidity than to help feed people on a very temporary basis. Likewise, if we're not using that dichotomy, that false dichotomy here, if we accept that there are other charities than just the Bud and the bus, not Bud campaign, and the billboard campaign, and say feeding the homeless, if we accept that there are other things, such as building wells in Africa to give people access to clean water instead of forcing them to walk for hours every day to get dirty water that makes them sick and kills them, building these wells might be more important than, say, giving a sandwich to a fucking homeless guy. Nuance, motherfucker. Do you speak it? Very informative studies have been conducted in the area of charity. One particularly interesting one was conducted by a Syracuse University professor of public administration, PhD in economics. The study was reported upon as follows. So the study did not state. It was reported upon as follows. Thank you for letting us know you are dishonestly quoting. Off the bat. It's appreciated, for once. Values advocated by conservatives, from church attendance and two-parent families to the Protestant work ethic, and a distaste for government-funded social services, such things as welfare, which is a government social services, make conservatives more generous than liberals. Really, the very recent, as of recording this, Republican shutdown of the government that stopped poor people from getting food stamps or, SNAP, Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, I think it's called. That shutdown done by Republicans makes them more generous than liberals. Fuck you. When it comes to helping the needy, Brooks, there's a quote here for reference inside the quote, it's actually, he got his reference link wrong, I apologize. Brooks, 122, at the bottom writes, "For too long, liberals have been claiming they are the most virtuous members of American society. Well, guess what? We can still make that claims, those of us who kind of fall under the label liberal, liberal with a small l, not a capital L, by the way. Yes, liberals who think that starving poor people to death, as the Republicans want to do, is bad, are more virtuous. If you think any differently, you are a sociopath, and fuck you." Although they usually give less to charity, they have nevertheless lambasted conservatives for their callousness in the face of social injustice. Gee, I wonder why. Oh, it's okay that you cause millions of people to starve for a few weeks, so long as you give more money as a whole to charities that do an incremental amount of good compared to the huge amount of bad that you just caused. Right. So long as you give more money, so much as the rich bastards use donations to charities as tax loopholes to avoid paying their due share, that's better than the liberals' insistence that not letting people starve to make a political point is bad. Right. Fuck you. Really. Just, you want to know why we're angry? That's the kind of bullshit that makes us angry. They want everyone's tax dollars to support charitable causes and are reluctant to write checks to those causes even when governments don't provide them with enough money. Right. The government don't provide enough money to these causes, and liberals, who are not all rich assholes who step on people's necks to make a buck, maybe have less money to just throw around willy-nilly. Maybe they realize that you can't really help anyone if you're starving to death yourself. See, if you have a mother and 2 children, and they're all starving to death, and say you're fleeing a war-torn country, you're trying to get past the border into another one, you're a refugee, trying to escape the death squad that's coming to get you. You have the starving mother and the 2 starving children. Here's one sandwich. It's enough of a meal for one person. If it's shared 3 ways, no one will benefit. They will eventually just get caught and get killed because they won't have enough energy to get very fucking far away. Who do you give this sandwich to? The children, who depend on the mother and will not be able to escape without the mother? So the mother starts going, collapses a few steps later, and the children can get nowhere because there's no one to take care of them and they die? Right, congratulations. You have fed 1 of 2 starving children and killed 3 people. Or do you maybe give the sandwich to the mother, who can maybe pick up her children and carry them across the finish line and survive and then get help at that point? Prioritizing, douchebags. Yes, it's called priorities. If you just say, look at the poor children and give them a sandwich, you just killed them. It looks good on paper. You know, like, who was it? Paul Ryan, who went to that soup kitchen and washed dishes that were already clean while nobody was there as a photo op and did no good at all. Yeah, it looks really good on the front page of the newspaper, but it accomplishes no good. So, yeah, liberals tend to be more educated, by the way, than conservatives. Even Bill O'Reilly admitted this in one of his things. You know, people with an education tend to be liberal, he said. And it is true. Liberals tend to be more educated. Liberals being more educated allows them to better understand prioritizing funds for these kinds of things. They might not have enough money to write checks for meaningless causes, such as giving a sandwich to homeless veterans for, you know, photo ops. But they may be able to survive on their own and, say, push for governmental reform on these programs, taxing the super rich more so that they, you know, can actually provide to the society that is so good to them, instead of just being greedy assholes who are actively draining the funds out of the hands of everybody else for their own benefit, making the problem even worse. Yeah, surviving to fight another day is better than just killing yourself in a pointless display of bullshit, as the conservatives do all the time. The shutdown was literally cutting off, well, not literally, I apologize, but it was figuratively cutting off their nose to spite their fucking stupid faces. Yeah, the government doesn't provide them with enough money. Liberals give less than conservatives in every way imaginable, including volunteer hours and donated blood. That surprises me if it is true, and I have no reason to believe it is at this point, because all that is bullshit. But really, liberals give less than conservatives in every way? Really? Every way. What about all that stuff I was just talking about? You know, trying to get a better system put in place to help more people. Oh, no, that doesn't count. It's not a monetary amount that we can just arbitrarily declare as bigger than the other one. No, so therefore there's no way that liberals are helping. Fuck this piece of shit. Harvey Mansfield, professor of government at Harvard University. Is this actually a field? Professor of government? And 2004 recipient of the National Humanities Medal, does not know Brooks personally but has read the book. His main finding is quite startling, that the people who talk the most about caring actually fork over the least. Right. The people who talk most about caring may actually care more and may have less money to fork over, you piece of shit. He said, but beyond this finding, I thought his analysis was extremely good, especially for an economist. Yes. His analysis may have well been good, but his conclusion that liberals are therefore uncharitable douchebags way off. And I apologize if this guy did not make that conclusion, but instead is being quote-mined to fuck by dishonest pieces of shit. It's not my fault, it's what the quote says. He thinks very well about the reason for this and reflects about politics and morals in a way most economists do their best to avoid. I'm not the least bit surprised that economists try to avoid morality. Making a buck trumps being a good person in all companies, in all corporations, and the conservative view, being rich means you're better than people who are smarter but poorer. You want proof of this? Oprah Winfrey, Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a ridiculous, ignorant piece of shit. He is rich, mostly by accident, and people, especially conservatives, give him a lot of weight, a lot of gravitas, because he's got so much money and a bad hairpiece that he must be a good person. No, he's a dumbass, he's racist, he's ignorant as fuck. I'm amazed he got to where he is, but being a cutthroat bastard, I guess, does have its advantages. And, you know that whole thing earlier about avoiding the consequences of your, being harmful to others and for your own benefit. I guess it works when you're a rich conservative, but fuck everybody else. And Oprah Winfrey, I quoted. A lot of people get angry when I say I call Oprah Winfrey a stupid bitch. Yes, she's rich. Yes, she gave a lot of people gifts. You know what else she's done? She has created Dr. Phil, who is not a psychologist. He's in an associated field of psychology, but he's not a serious scientist. He has no license in giving people advice, let alone, acting as a psychologist. He has been panned by associations of psychologists for being a fraud, for being a nobody, for being incompetent and worthless. Oprah Winfrey made his career. You know who else Oprah Winfrey has made? Deepak fucking Chopra, the guy who sells a bunch of bullshit and profits from it, and speaks so confidently while using nonsense words and pretends he just proved God exists, or that his stupid placebos cure cancer, or whatever the fuck he says. You know what else Oprah Winfrey has promoted? The Secret, that hilariously evil book that says that if you really want something, you'll get it, and then, therefore, if you get something, such as death from cancer, you really wanted to die from cancer. You didn't want to survive after all. Tell you what, Oprah Winfrey, you fucking stupid hag, do this experiment. Sit on your fucking couch at home, unplug the phones, and throw all of your food out. Wish for a pizza to be delivered to your house. I look forward to seeing your corpse. And I don't mean that because I hate Oprah Winfrey for being black or for being a woman. I mean, she made The Secret a real thing. She took this stupid idea that wishful thinking solves problems. This idea that poor, desperate people bought into, hoping that if they just wished hard enough, they could be rich too. And they forked over money to these frauds, and they got nothing for their trouble, and they got screwed. So fuck Oprah Winfrey. Morality and economists, two completely unrelated fields, so it's not the least bit surprising that this economist would get his conclusion completely fucking backwards. Another report states, in 2000, religious people gave about 3.5 times as much as secular people. Is that a total? Because if it's a total, it should be a hell of a lot more than 3.5 times. Because again, we are 20% of the population, so it should be like 4 or 5 times as much, right? Because 20% is 5 times into 100, therefore 4 times as much. Oh, it's a little bit less than 4 times as much. So if it's a total, we're actually ahead. And if it's just a percentage, 3.5 times more on average than atheists, so the fuck what? Religious conservatives are far more charitable than secular liberals, except insofar as they are fine with letting poor people starve to death to help their rich buddies. So, no, religious conservatives are not more charitable. To call a religious conservative charitable is to not understand what the fucking words you're using mean. And that those who support the idea that government should redistribute income are amongst the least likely to dig into their own walls to help others. Right, least likely, is that perhaps because they're the poor ones? I can't afford to help others, but I want the government to redistribute wealth, so here's all my money. I'm going to go starve to death now. Religious people are more likely than the non-religious to volunteer for secular charitable activities, give blood, and return money when they are accidentally given too much change. Really? Really. Religious people are more likely to give the change back. Oh, therefore Jesus totally came back from the dead, right? That's the point that's being made here, right? Because that's bullshit. One does not mean the other. Even if it were true, and I think that a study that I saw actually proved that atheists were more likely to give change back if they got too much. I know that it's the case with me. If I get a penny more, I'll walk back to the store after I'm done and give it back. I have this huge hang-up about money, and even pennies just bother me to no end if I'm given too much. And in fact, if I'm given too little, sometimes I don't give the fuck enough of a care to actually do anything about it. Oh, I'm 10 cents short. I'm not going to die from it. Oh, you gave me 10 cents more. No, you're not going to balance your cash at the end of the night. That's terrible. I hate when that happens to me when I was working cashiers as a cashier. And so, here's the penny that you get, the 10 cents, the nickel that you gave me too many. Just take it, and you're going to balance tonight. I literally think that way. I cannot help it. It's just, I have this hang-up about money. That's how I operate. So does that mean atheism is true? No, it doesn't. But neither does it mean that atheism is false when other people do it more. Mr. Brooks says, fuck you, Mr. Brooks. Byron R. Johnson, a sociology professor and co-director of the Institute for Studies of Religion at Baylor University, says he recently gathered data that show similar results, such as high levels of civic engagement among religious people. What exactly is civic engagement? Is it letting poor people starve to death to make a political point? Because that certainly would be true in that case. Of course, letting people starve isn't very civil, but hey, if you're going to make a bad point, justify it with bad arguments. While assembling a report on faith in America that was released in September 2006. It was not surprising to me that the little old farm in South Dakota outgave people in San Francisco. Good for you. You want a fucking cookie? Households headed by and I love this again because this starts out just as another line, another point that is ignored in favor of moving on immediately, and households is not even capitalized. So, more ineptitude from this incredibly stupid and hateful prick of an author. Petty, I know, it's the third time I do it, but for fuck's sake, do some spell checking. And I know this is gigantic, but still, do some fucking spell checking, for fuck's sake. The commas are bad. I haven't even mentioned how bad some of the commas are, but come the fuck on. If you're gonna skip, just put a quote and then skip the point and then move on, at least capitalize your fucking sentence. Is that really so much to ask? Households headed by a conservative give roughly 30% more to charity each year than households headed by a liberal, despite the fact that the liberal families on average earn slightly more. Okay, so conservatives tend to be religious, and religious feel this obligation to give money to churches, and churches typically run to charities. So what the fuck is your point? If you're gonna make a bad point, at least back it up with a bad argument. I know. Most of the difference in giving among conservatives and liberals gets back to religion. Religious liberals gives nearly as much as religious conservatives, Mr. Brooks found. Oh, so it has nothing to do with liberal or conservative. It has to do with religiosity. Oh, so why the fuck was all that stuff about liberals and conservatives put in. It's because this is creation.com, they're Trinitarian monotheists, and they hate liberals. Because, of course, these people are rich, because they act as a charity and just scoop in all that money that desperate idiots throw at them. Therefore, they're rich and they don't give a fuck about anybody but themselves. So liberals who don't donate to, atheists who are mostly liberals don't give as much, so therefore liberals are all bad. Except religious liberals give nearly as much as religious conservatives, Mr. Brooks found. So, again, full of shit, right? Is this really hard to understand? And secular conservatives are even less generous than secular liberals. Right. Secular conservatives, many of them are uber rich, because you can't get that rich and really have any sort of justification for believing that there's a God who loves poverty. So if you're really rich and you don't believe in a God, of course you're a greedy asshole. It's interesting that this here shows that conservatism can be a negative influence on charitability, which is something I've been saying all along, but this article has so far been arguing against. Religious people, on average, give 54% more per year than secular people to human welfare charities. Therefore, Jesus. Again, it does not follow. The two are completely unrelated. That makes no fucking difference. The Barna Group reported the following about atheists and agnostics. They are less likely than active faith Americans to volunteer to help a non-church related nonprofit, to describe themselves as active in the community, and to personally help or serve a homeless or poor person. Because that's the metric of if God exists. Atheists and agnostics don't help poor people. Well, I have helped poor people. I was coming back from work on 2 occasions, and I was biking, and it was cold, and I wanted to get home as fast as possible, but I saw people stopped on the side of the road trying to fix a flat tire. In the first case, it was this really old lady who I just felt sorry for her being outside on the street she was on. I would not have recommended being on that street, although being in Montreal, very safe. I decided to stop and help her out. I actually drove by, slowed down, turned around, came back, and I thought, lady, let me help you out. I've never changed a tire before, but I'm going to help you out. So, does that prove atheism is true? Of course not. Likely, yeah. Fuck that. It makes no difference to the truth behind the claim that God exists. The typical no-faith American, is there such a thing as a typical no-faith American? Donated just $200 in 2006. Wasn't 2006 the year that there was... Oh no, that was 2008, right. Which is more than 7 times less than the amount contributed by the prototypical active faith adult. 1,500. So, either religious people are super rich, and therefore biasing the amount of money that is given to charities that way, or conservatives are super poor and giving all of their money to charities to their own detriment, which is in fact what happens in many cases. And this makes them better? It certainly makes them more stupid and, well, almost suicidal. Even when church-based giving is subtracted from the equation, I thought you were specifically saying it was non-church related up to now. Only now are you subtracting church-based giving? Huh, okay. Active faith adults donated twice as many dollars last year as did atheists and agnostics. In fact, while just 7% of active faith adults failed to contribute any personal funds in 2006, that compares with 22% among the no-faith adults. Whoop the fucking do. Atheists and agnostics were more likely than were Christians to be focused on acquiring wealth, really, because that's what you take away from that. You don't perhaps have the money to donate to charity, or you maybe think that there are more important things for you to invest your money in. Therefore, it's all about you. You're selfish as a liberal. Even though some people, most people, in fact, 78% of atheists do donate to charity. No, it's all about acquiring wealth for themselves. That contradicts itself, and they're too stupid to realize it. I mean, the 22% is great. Oh, 7% didn't, but them it's 22%. That's huge. Lies, damn lies, and statistics. Barna Group President David Kinnaman stated, proponents of secularism suggest that rejecting faith is a simple and intelligent response to what we know today. Yet, it is rejecting faith is a simple and intelligent response to what we know today. We know more shit than the idiots who wrote the Bible did, therefore it's a simple and intelligent response to what we know today to reject the stupid faith of those stupid, ignorant bigots. Yet most of the Americans who overtly reject faith harbor doubts about whether they are correct in doing so. Right. Because decades, in many cases, of indoctrination and threats of hell can have no effect on future opportunities for self-doubt. No, once you become an atheist, you completely abandon all self-doubt. You completely cut ties with your past, and no religion ever affects you ever again. Oh, how I wish that were the case. However, many atheists who reject Christianity as adults, who reject hell-having religions as adults, many adult atheists are still plagued with the fear of hell as they grow. It fades over time, but it's something really hard to get rid of when you're taught it as a kid and threatened with it constantly. So, fuck this. Many of the most ardent critics of Christianity claim that compassion and generosity do not hinge on faith, yet those who divorce themselves from spiritual commitment are significantly less likely to help others. Fuck you. That is not the truth. Help does not equate giving money to a charity. Help might be doing something like hating the conservative douchebags who shut down the government and starved people for weeks. Helping is not the same as giving money to charity, you fucking piece of shit. In fact, giving money to charity may be the opposite of helping if you're giving to a Christocentric charity that holds a Bible and holds a sandwich and say, you don't get one without the other, you fucker. 11.2, Atheism and Suicide. I already covered this in a previous video. I think it was in Chapter 8. I'll try to go through it quickly this time. Religiously unaffiliated subjects had significantly more lifetime suicide attempts and more first-degree relatives who committed suicide than subjects who endorsed a religious affiliation. The first-degree relatives who committed suicide may have been theists themselves, so this statistic is pointlessly useless. Unaffiliated subjects were younger, less often married, less often had children, and had less contact with family members. Therefore, atheism rejects family and hates people, and it's antisocial and it leads to suicide. Or maybe the fact that you're irreligious causes your family to abandon you makes it more difficult for you to find someone you love because religion is such an important part of society and is so widely embraced that, hi, I'm an atheist. Ooh, get away from me, you freak. Less often have children. Actually, intelligent people tend to have fewer children because they understand the consequences of doing this and making babies. Therefore, they think ahead of time, if I have a child, I'll have to pay for this, it'll cause me problems with this, I'll have to take care of the child, I'll have to do this, and maybe that's not the decision I want to do right now. The Bible says we should just keep making babies. Stupid people have no problem. They can just stick that dick in that pussy over and over as much as they want, and they don't have to think of the future because God. Intelligent people tend to have less children. Yes. Therefore, atheists would tend to have less children. Yes, because atheists are typically more intelligent than religious people. Less contact with family members. Well, if you're shunned by your family for being the black sheep who is an atheist who hates God, guess what? Not having contact with your family members isn't really fucking surprising. And if your family shuns you and you can't find someone you love because no one even wants to talk to you because you're one of those evil atheists who worship Satan and hate people, maybe you are going to be more likely to commit suicide. Furthermore, subjects with no religious affiliation perceived fewer reasons for living. Right. I can name one fewer reason for living, namely, God says you should keep living. So, by default, yes, atheists would have one less reason for living. The difference is, that's a bad reason for living any fucking way, so fuck you. Particularly fewer moral objections to suicide. Yes, the moral objections to suicide are non-existent. Well, no, I'll be fair. If you decide to commit suicide, it might hurt your family to some extent, and you should take that into consideration. However, if you are committing suicide because your family hurt you, then fuck those fuckers. You're suffering, you see no end to it, you don't think you'll be able to get out of it. Go forth with my blessing. We're sorry that life didn't work out for you. It's a tragedy, it's a shame, but we're not going to force you to keep living no matter what, like the douchebag religious people. In terms of clinical characteristics, religiously unaffiliated subjects had more lifetime impulsivity, aggression, and past substance use disorder. Is this really surprising when you have a religion that says you shouldn't even drink? If you don't espouse the religious belief that drugs are bad, then maybe you're going to be more likely to try drugs. I have tried ecstasy once, out of curiosity. It didn't really have any effect on me, so it leads me to believe that the pill I had wasn't really good or didn't work. Or maybe it just had a really high resistance to chemicals like that. I was curious about it. I tried it once. I felt maybe some of the effects. Maybe it was placebo. And I satisfied my curiosity and I moved on. Oh, but I have past substance abuse now. Therefore, I fall into this bullshit statistic now, right? Aggression. Well, when you're lied to your whole life, when you're accused of being a Satan-worshipping, immoral monster, maybe you are going to tend to be more aggressive. I certainly know that it's the case with me when a religious person comes up to me and says, "You're a liar, you're evil, and you're stupid, it says so in the Bible." I'm going to tell them to fuck the fuck off. Is that aggression? Why, yes it is. Oh, I'm only aggressive because I don't believe in God. It has nothing to do with the fact that believers are fucking dicks. No, it's completely unrelated to that. And impulsivity. How the fuck is that even measured? But whatever. I'll grant that one. I mean, I covered the others well enough, I feel. I can just say, okay, sure, we're more impulsive. Whatever. What's that fucking thing? Enjoy. Pier 1. No differences in the level of subjective and objective depression, hopelessness, or stressful life were found. So, atheists aren't more depressed and more hopeless or more stressed than religious people. This is a lie that is systematically repeated by religious people, such as this website, creation.com, in some article, I'm sure, and religious people in general, that atheists are depressed and have no hope. And it's nice to see that they actually made the mistake of quoting something that points out their bullshit again. So, thank you for putting something that shows how you're an idiot in your own texts. Again. And, not realizing it. 11.3. Adult mortality. Religious attendance is associated with U.S. adult mortality in a graded fashion. People who never attended exhibit 1.87 times the risk of death in the follow-up period compared with people who attend more than once a week. This translates into a 7-year difference in life expectancy at age 20 between those who never attend and those who attend more than once a week. So people who never attend church have a 7-year difference in life expectancy, 7 years less than people who go to church a lot. Therefore, God exists, and He's magically protecting the people who go to church. Or maybe spending a few hours every day, once a week, going to church and just snoozing is better than, doing stuff all the time. 7 years. That's 1 day out of the week. Less, isn't it? Huh. 7-year difference in life expectancy, and the people who don't spend 1 day out of every 7 days in the week going to church. I could almost believe that this is significant. Health selectivity is responsible for a portion of the religious attendance effect. People who do not attend church or religious services are also more likely to be unhealthy and, consequently, to die. Oh, so it's not God. Good. However, religious attendance also works through increased social ties and behavioral factors to decrease the risks of death. Sure, if you engineer this fake little group where everyone loves each other, as in Scientology, you may live longer. Being drunk is no better argument, if it makes you happy, than being sober makes you unhappy. It's just great. You're junkies and you live longer. Good for you. You're still junkies. You still believe in something that's wrong. That may not matter to you, but for those of us who are honest, it does matter. And although the magnitude of the association between religious attendance and mortality varies by cause of death, the direction of the association is consistent across causes. Okay, so generally speaking, the differences in life expectancy vary based on the cause of death. But generally, people who don't believe are going to live a bit longer, is the point that's being made here. Great. As I keep saying, doesn't prove God. Those Mexican Americans aged 65 and older who attend church once per week exhibit a 32% reduction in the risk of mortality as compared with those who never attend religious services. Sorry, hiccups again. Moreover, the benefits of weekly attendance persist with controls for socio-demographic characteristics, cardiovascular health, activities of daily living, cognitive function. Really? People who go to church more have more cognitive function? That is bullshit. Excuse me. That is bullshit. Physical mobility and functioning. Well, yeah, if you force yourself to get out of the house once every week, more than people who don't, you're probably going to be more physically mobile. Consequence of physical mobility being used more often, therefore it lasts longer. Functioning, social support, health behaviors, mental health, and subjective health. Subjective health. Always a good argument when it's subjective health. The fuck does that mean? It's subjective. Our findings suggest that weekly church attendance may reduce the risk of mortality among older Mexican Americans. Good for them. In the nationwide cohort of Americans, predominantly Christians, analyses demonstrated a lower risk of death, independent of confounding positions or confounding factors, among those reporting religious attendance at least weekly compared to never. The same point over and over again. Atheists die more than Christians, therefore God. 11.4 Cause of death. After adjusting for age and sex, infrequent, never or less than weekly attenders had significantly higher rates of circulatory, cancer, digestive, and respiratory mortality. There's a statistical term here that I don't really know how to explain, but it's the variance, I think, in the sample sizes being very small. That's important. But not mortality due to external causes, meaning being murdered or things like that. Well, if being religious magically protected your life, wouldn't you expect to also not be murdered as much? If there is this magical shield of God protecting you and making you healthier and live longer, wouldn't that apply to murder, for instance? And this point should, in someone who is intellectually honest and capable, point in the direction of maybe it's not God magic making people live longer, but simply the socio-demographic characteristics or whatever that are associated with going to church a lot and having a group and, faking happiness with others and more and interacting with people and bullshit reasons and never really doing anything that matters in your fucking life. Maybe that's what lets you live longer, not God magic. Just saying. But, of course, intellectual honesty is something that Mariano, author of this article, does not demonstrate anywhere. Therefore, of course that's wrong. Differences in cancer mortality were explained by prior health status. Associations with other outcomes were weakened but not eliminated by including health behaviors in prior health status. So it kind of sounds like they're adjusting for religion making people live longer, therefore there was something else that means, even though they might not necessarily, it does. I'm not sure because there's very little context. It's just a very narrow quote that's being given here, but it certainly sounds like that's what they're doing. Religious people died as much as atheists? Well, there's prior factors, therefore change it a little bit. That's what it sounds like to me. I'm no statistician, but this just seems a little bit dishonest. In fully adjusted models, infrequent attenders had significantly or marginally significantly higher rates of death from circulatory mortality, mortality, period. Yes, very weird punctuation again. These results are consistent with the view that religious involvement, like high socioeconomic status, is a generally protective factor that promotes health through a variety of causal pathways. What does religious involvement have to do with high socioeconomic status? Being rich. Oh, is it really surprised that being rich and being able to afford things like better food and better health care and pills and doctors, does it really surprise anyone that high socioeconomic status leads to more health? No. The religious one, well, that's a whole other beast, and it's kind of biased, but whatever. It still doesn't prove God, so I don't know how this is any argument against atheism. Oh, if you're an atheist, you're going to die a little bit sooner. Yes, but at least I'll be living honestly, so fuck you. 11.5, attitudes towards abortion. Yes, they had to go there. In... an effort to determine changes occurring between 1968 and 1978 in the percentage who approved of legal abortion in Canada under 6 possible conditions of pregnancy, and I dropped my hands because the quote ends, agnostic atheist students were amongst the least likely to draw a distinction between the following conditions under which abortion would be considered. First set of conditions, harm to mother's health, possible child deformity, pregnancy from rape. Second set of conditions, out of wedlock pregnancy, economic inability to support child, unwanted child. So atheists in Canada showed an increase based on these 2 factors. That's it. Scary, scary. That's literally all this is. Attitudes towards abortion. Here's some data about Canada from over 30 years ago. 11.6. Christmas and happiness. Religious people are happier than those without spirituality in their life, says psychologist Dr. Stephen Joseph from the University of Warwick. And those who celebrate the original Christian meaning of Christmas, is that the one without the trees because those are symbols of pagan worship? Are on the whole happier than those who primarily celebrate the festive season with consumer gifts. I'm going to call bullshit here. The very few people who celebrate the original Christian meaning of Christmas, which I can probably count on one hand if I cut off most of my fingers, the very few people who celebrate the original may think they are happier. Happiness is an extremely subjective concept. Who the fuck cares? Oh, yes, celebrating the festive season with consumer gifts. Yeah, I have to buy gifts for all those people. This would be true even for the original Christians who also have gift giving. The gift giving does, after all, come to some extent from the gold and myrrh and incense that is given to Jesus by the three fictional characters of whatever their faces are. Gift giving, being forced to be happy with people you don't really want to fucking see, yeah, that's bound to make you unhappy. The people who celebrate Christmas not to see family members that they don't want to see because it's family, but instead want to celebrate the life of Jesus, they may be stupid enough to be happier. Good for them. You want to drink? Get fucking drunk. Leave us the fuck out of it. Research entitled Religiosity and Its Association with Happiness, Purpose in Life, and Self-Actualization, published in Mental Health, Religion, and Culture, reveals a positive relation between religiosity and happiness. How fucking surprising. A religious rag with a research entitled Religiosity and Its Association with Happiness has found that religiosity leads to more happiness. Wow. You could knock me over with a feather. I am shocked that so much bias led to such a biased conclusion. What the fuck? Dr. Stephen Joseph from the University of Warwick, didn't I just read this? Oh no, it's just another similar quote. Said, religious people seem to have a greater purpose in life, which is why they are happier. Religious people have no purpose in their life if they base it on the unimaginary being tells them what to do. They have a purpose in life that they can most easily identify. Jesus said this. Sure. But they do not have a greater purpose in life. They have what they think isn't a purpose in life, but is really just a pathetic, primitive superstition based on bullshit beliefs from bigoted, Bronze Age idiots. Which is why they're happier. Good for them. Again, being drunk, etc. Looking at the research evidence, it seems that those who celebrate the Christian meaning of Christmas, this obsession with Christmas, but again, this is the section about Christmas, are on the whole likely to be happier, and those who are alcoholics are more likely to be drunk. Research shows that too much materialism in our lives can be terrible for happiness. Therefore, materialism is false. Or materialism is true and it does lead to being less happy because you recognize reality for what it is and you don't get the fucking sugarcoating. Results show that religious people are happier and that the relation between religiosity and happiness is in part related to a sense of purpose in life. Yes, even if that purpose is fake, you seem to have more purpose in life, therefore you can pretend to be happier. If you recognize that life has no purpose except the purpose that you, in your own estimation, give to your life, then guess what? You may be less happy because someone like myself feels that my purpose in life is to educate other people. And that purpose that I am very fond of, actually, I'm very proud that I like to share knowledge, that I like to make people smart. In fact, my wish, my purpose in life, if I could get that magic wand that grants me any wish I could, it is that I could somehow make everyone on the planet more intelligent than me. I would be proud to be the dumbest person on the planet if I were as intelligent as I am now, and everyone was just 100 IQ points smarter than me. I would love that. I would love to be the dumbest person on the planet. That would be my purpose in life, to make everyone smarter than me. Do you know why this is not conducive to happiness? Because religious people are fucking idiots who wouldn't know good sense if it skull-fucked them. Atheism and superstition. Oh, this is going to be good. The Wall Street Journal. I'm sure that the Wall Street Journal is a good source for information about superstition and its relation to atheism. From Hollywood to the Academy, atheists are convinced that a decline in traditional religious belief would lead to a smarter, more scientifically literate, and even more civilized populace, which is shown in factuality by societies that are less religious, being healthier by several metrics than the United States. And as I pointed out before, places in the United States, just the United States, in its own little bubble, religious states are worse off than non-religious states. Take Alaska. It's a fucking hellhole, and there's churches there every 4 buildings. It's ridiculous. Yeah, so a decline in traditional religious beliefs would lead to a smarter, more scientifically literate, and more civilized populace. Smarter because it would get people to stop rejecting science based on Magicman said it's like this, not as you accurately demonstrated it to be. More scientifically literate, yes. If we didn't have places like creation.com lying to everybody's face, or Answer in Genesis, or all those places, those groups of people who no longer have access to these lie factories would be more scientifically literate because they wouldn't be lied to about science, and more civilized. Remind me again, who enslaves people, who oppresses women, who wants to kill homosexuals, or at least treat them as non-humans or subhumans. Remind me what kind of population we would have if we didn't have the people endorsing all those things. Alright, it would be more civilized, wouldn't it? Who is doing those things? Religious people, isn't it? Oh, so yeah, fuck this fucking point that is attempted to be made. Reality is that the new atheist campaign, by discouraging religion, won't create a new group of intelligent, skeptical, enlightened beings. The evidence for this is religious people say so, and religious people have God on their side. Far from it, it might actually encourage new levels of mass superstition. And that's not a conclusion to take on faith. It's what the empirical data, not provided here, tells us. What Americans really believe, a comprehensive new study released by Baylor University. Baylor University. I think I've heard that name before. I think it's a Christian university. One of those, not exactly a diploma mill, but like the Oral Roberts University, where it's just God, 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 and doves, doves. I'm not sure. I hope I'm not just shitting on Baylor University. I apologize to Baylor University if I'm wrong, but I vaguely remember hearing it in that context. My memory is unreliable, so I apologize if I'm wrong. Please forgive me, Baylor University, if you are not a private Christian religious bullshit factory. If you are, fuck you. However, that's my stance on that. So I don't know what you are, but I hope you're not, and I hope that this is going to be a valid point. But I fear that the truth is going to disappoint me yet again. Baylor University yesterday shows that traditional Christian religion greatly decreases belief in everything from the efficacy of palm readers to the usefulness of astrology. Yes, you have one bullshit belief that says all other bullshit beliefs are wrong. Therefore, no longer believing in the one bullshit beliefs divides people among the other bullshit beliefs. It helps when you use your statistics properly, because it wouldn't cause more people to believe in bullshit. The same amount of people would believe in bullshit. It would just be different bullshit. So it also shows that the irreligious and the members of more liberal Protestant denominations, so atheists and Protestants, can you feel the bias? Far from being resistant to superstition, tend to be much more likely to believe in the paranormal and in pseudoscience than evangelical Christians. I wonder what the fuck they're basing that on. More likely to believe in the paranormal and in pseudoscience than Christians who believe in nothing but paranormal bullshit and pseudoscience? Excuse the fuck out of me if I doubt that this is accurate in any sense of the word. Continuing. While 31% of people who never worship expressed strong belief in these things, dreams foretelling future, existence of Atlantis, haunting, necromancy, Bigfoot, and Nessie, I have to wonder how much of that 31% was just people fucking with the survey takers here. Only 8% of people who attend a house of worship more than once a week did. Right. 100% of them believe in bullshit. but only 8% believed in other bullshit as well. So 100% are stupid, and 8% of those 100% are doubly so. Congratulations. Failing to make your point convincingly to someone who understands what the fuck you're on about. In fact, the more traditional and evangelical the respondent, the less likely he was to believe in, for instance, the possibility of communicating with people who are dead. Wait, the people who are most religious and most evangelical, who believe that witches are evil, would not believe in things like magic from witches? What a shock. This is not a new finding. In his 1938 book, The Whys of a Philosophical Scrivener, skeptic and science writer Martin Gardner cited the decline of traditional religious belief amongst the better educated as one of the causes for an increase in pseudoscience, cults, and superstition. And like I said earlier, you stop believing in one thing that says all other bullshit is wrong, people are going to seek their bullshit elsewhere. Get coke off the street, people are going to turn to heroin. In this flawed analogy that I'm making, that still kind of drives the point I'm driving at. I hope you see what I was getting at in saying that. I know it was wrong, but still, you see the point. He referenced a 1980 study. In his 1983 book, he referenced a 1980 study published in the magazine Skeptical Inquirer. Skeptical Inquirer sounds like National Enquirer, sounds like a rag. Things can... I'm not saying that this is a rag like National Enquirer, but you know that anyone can put skeptical on their publication and be full of shit, right? That showed irreligious college students to be by far the most likely to embrace paranormal beliefs, while born-again Christians college students were the least likely. Except, of course, the paranormal belief that an Arabic Jew 2,000 years ago died and came back as a living zombie and disappeared 3 days later by magically floating into the sky. Except that paranormal belief. I mean, I keep making this point over and over, but I need to remind you how dumb this study is. Surprisingly, while increased church attendance and membership in a conservative denomination has a powerful negative effect on paranormal beliefs, which it doesn't, it just prevents you from getting other ones, higher education doesn't. And that's a problem for education. Education is clearly being done wrong if people can say, chemistry works this way, but magic can cure your cancer. 2 years ago, 2 professors published another study in Skeptical Inquirer showing that while less than 1/4 of college freshmen surveyed expressed a general belief in such superstitions as ghosts, psychic healing, haunted house, demonic possession, ghosts, and wishes, the figure jumped to 31% of college seniors and 34% of graduate students. Well, that's actually encouraging. The older people have these beliefs, and the younger ones have less of those beliefs. So the trend is actually going downwards, is what I'm taking away from this. It's not going up, it's reducing over time. That awkward moment when you're full of shit and it's just put out there for all to see. Interestingly, I bet it's not interesting. I really bet it's not interesting. Shall we continue? They further note, we can't even count on self-described atheists to be strict rationalists. I was right, it wasn't interesting. According to the Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life's monumental U.S. Religious Landscape Survey that was issued in June, 21% of self-proclaimed atheists believe in either a personal God or an impersonal force. Yes, self-proclaimed atheists who believe in a personal God. Therefore, atheists can't be counted on to be rational. If you're an atheist and you believe in a personal God, guess what? You're not bald. You have hair. Don't call yourself a fucking bald person. Or an impersonal force. Okay, an impersonal force could be believed in by atheists. If they don't believe it's a God, they don't believe in a God. They believe in something equally stupid, but so do Raelians. And they're atheists, even though they're fucking out of their fucking minds. And in fact, they are fucking a lot. So that was appropriate. 10% of atheists pray at least weekly. To who? Who the fuck are people who don't believe there's someone there listening are they praying to? And 12% believe in heaven. Yes, this survey by the Pew Forum on Religion, a religious organization, is bullshit. This seems rather bizarre. Yes, it does, because it makes no fucking sense. But many people who claim to believe in and even worship gods actually do not. Right, like the Greeks and Romans, right? The ones who believe in these gods, but since the gods don't exist, are actually atheists? 1 Corinthians, whatever it was. For example, the spirituality expressed in the New Age movement is very much based on the interaction with impersonal energy, which is known as ki, chi, or ki, prana, etc. New Agers are not as likely to refer to God in the traditional theistic manner, but to the universe, the life force, our higher selves, ascended masters, the dumbest expression since anything religious, etc. It may also be noteworthy that pantheism has, as far back as 1900 AD, been considered a polite form of atheism, as per Ernst Haeckel in Monism, from his The Riddle of the Universe. Ernst Haeckel, the guy who was a fraud, he said something about atheism? Oh, I guess he's not a fraud after all on this thing, but he's wrong about evolution, and atheists are evil. An earlier study, published in the Skeptical Inquirer of all places, concluded that Bible believers are the ones who appear most virtuous according to scientific standards when we examine the cults and pseudosciences proliferating in our society today. Okay, that one I will grant without even questioning it. Bible believers appear to be most virtuous when compared to cults like Scientology, when compared to the Jim Jones thing that they all committed suicide because Jim Jones was a fucking sociopath, like the Order of the Solar Temple that routinely kills all of its members. Yeah, compared to those, I guess you can say that they're more virtuous. You're comparing yourself to be the least rapey rapist in the bunch. You're still a rapist. Congratulations. You have successfully failed to distinguish yourself in any meaningful fashion. 11.8. Atheism in society. Atheists claim that atheist, secularist societies are superior in every way. Yes, we not only claim this, we can demonstrate it based on, say, the societal health factors such as a number of teen pregnancies, number of people in jail, number of rape, and the general health of the members, and all that stuff. Secular societies are superior in every parameter that describes societal health. Parameters, by the way, which were not selected in advance by an atheist organization, but by an organization that is not related to religion or atheism in any sense, deciding what they would consider to be societal health factors, and then looking at societies and finding out, hey, the atheistic ones are better. One was touted by Ruth Gledhill in the Times of London article, Societies Worse Off When They Have God on Their Side. There's a redirect here to the Times Online. I don't know if the link still works, but whatever. She was writing a summary of the study in the Journal of Religion and Society by Gregory S. Paul, entitled Cross-National Correlations of Quantifiable Societal Health with Popular Religiosity and Secularism in the Prosperous Democracies. So this sounds a lot like that study I was referring to. I don't know the full title of that one, but this sounds about right. The journal article does not say what Miss Gledhill reports. Statistician Scott Gilbreth notes in his From Our Bulging How Not to Do Statistics file on magicstatistics.com, another redirect here. The journal article does not say what Mrs. Gledhill reports. Ruth Gledhill's news report on the Times misrepresents the contents of Mr. Paul's study. Well, thank you for asserting that that is the case, and only being quoted in a fraction that supports your assertion that is made with no context. What then of the actual contents? I wondered. Gilbreth wrote, the plan of the study is to gather and compare data for countries he refers to variously as prosperous developed democracies and developing democracies. The definition of these terms is never discussed. Right. Democracies. That is so vague. What is a democracy? Prosperous developed democracies? I wonder, does a poor country with a dictatorship count as a prosperous developed democracy? I don't understand these terms. Please, Mr. Gilbreth, help me understand these terms that are not discussed but are explicitly stated what they are, and anyone with a fucking brain could figure them out. Pretending to cry sometimes causes a tear to fall down. I wish I could just shed a single tear and shed all of this pain that this article is giving me, but unfortunately, magic does not happen. 18 countries are included for data comparison. Among those omitted without clear explanation are Italy, Greece, Finland, Luxembourg, and Belgium. Okay, so they omitted them without a clear explanation why. Therefore, the study is flawed. Maybe they just didn't include them because they didn't have access to statistics. Maybe they didn't write why because it's, not fucking relevant to any fucking thing, any fucking where. But whatever, Oh, they excluded some countries, therefore... is Italy really healthy? Is Greece? Because look at Greece right now and tell me it's a prosperous developed democracy or a developing democracy. It's actually a devolving dictatorship, wasn't it? I mean, Mubarak was his name. He was the dictator. He wasn't elected. Or if he was elected, it was just always just bullshit fake elections that he what's the word? I'm looking for the word for when you fuck up an election. Tampered with, I guess, I could use. Why are these left out? Well, as I said, maybe Greece isn't really qualified, and perhaps neither do the other ones. He mentions in passing that the especially low rates of homicide in the more Catholic European states are statistical noise due to yearly fluctuations incidental to this sample. But no statistical evidence corroborating this assertion is provided. So we excluded something because of some statistical noise, but these statistics are not included. Right, because of statistical noise. You want the statistics? Look them up your fucking self. Douchebag, you call yourself a statistician, look up the fucking statistics, maybe. Mr. Paul's sample frame appears arbitrary. Okay, let's say it is. So the fuck what? One outlier does not prove a trend. If, say, Italy, Finland, Luxembourg, and Belgium all had a high degree of religiosity while simultaneously showing societal health factors, how about the 18 other ones that kind of disproved that? You have 4 cases where it worked. I'm excluding Greece here as a matter of fact because of the political climate today. So they're not democracies, therefore Greece is excluded. But those other 4, I'm assuming they're all democracies. Even if they are correct, then they don't really disprove the 18 other ones. You can have an exception, or 2 or 3 or 4. If the exceptions aren't all of the cases, then you haven't really proven the point wrong. It's possible for statistical noise to happen in a statistical study. A statistician, like allegedly Scott Gilbreth here, could not be expected to know this, however. Why would a statistician know how statistics work? Who the fuck knows, right? Obviously, in a sample of 18 observations, inclusions or exclusions of only 1 or 2 observations can make a big difference in the results, while simultaneously not altering the conclusion. At best, this is very sloppy statistical practice. Not looking up statistics, does that count as a sloppy statistical practice? Because that's what you're guilty of, douchebag. If one were suspicious, or a douchebag, One might point out that this makes cooking the results child's play. Sure. And what of the alternate consideration where the information simply wasn't available and therefore those countries were excluded, and if we had access to the information, perhaps it would prove the point even harder? Would that be cooking the results? Fuck you, Gilbreth, basically. Further wrote about who... Yes, Gilbreth further wrote about who Gregory S. Paul is in an article called Mystery Man. It turns out that he is a freelance paleontologist, author, and illustrator. Argument ad hominem. Oh, he's a freelance paleontologist, therefore he's wrong. I mean, sure, it doesn't point to his expertise being very well established, but hey, Gilbreth here can't even look up some fucking numbers for his own fucking self, so he's not really one to bitch. Whom the Council for Secular Humanism recommends for debates with young Earth creationists. Yes, how dare a freelance paleontologist, author, and illustrator be recommended for debates with young Earth creationists when he gets statistics wrong, allegedly? Gary Boom, a professor of sociology at Monash University in Melbourne, stated that Gregory S. Paul doesn't stick to his field of paleontology. He goes into the field of what I would call sociology without preparation or evidence or discipline and makes some assertions about it. Well, that certainly seems to be the case. That doesn't necessarily mean he's wrong, does it? It doesn't mean he's right, either. It certainly points in the direction of him not being right. I grant you. But it doesn't automatically mean he's wrong. And if he has done this study, and he has the evidence backing him, and statistician Gilbreth cannot even look up the fucking numbers, then I'm going to take the non-statistician's authority over the lying shit-stain's authority. Furthermore, George Gallup noted, in order for the author's bold claims against religious commitment contributing to society to hold true, he would have to refute the hundreds of volumes that have proven otherwise. Named, what are they? What do they show? When were they written? Who were they written by? What do they contain? Oh, they just exist. There's hundreds of volumes. You know, in the Dover trial, Behe, the guy who kind of invented the irreducible complexity thing, stated that he had no knowledge of books that argued against this idea of irreducible complexity. At which point, the defense, Kitzmiller v. Dover, the prosecution, the no intelligent design in science class side, just started piling books in front of the guy. You know, this book proves you wrong, and this book proves you wrong, and this book proves you wrong, and this one, and this one, and this one. Do you want the fucking pages? Here they're saying, there's hundreds of books. Cookie? Do you want a cookie? Is that what you want? You want a fucking cookie? Yeah, there's hundreds of volumes, and it never occurred to you to name one of them. From discussions on parenting and fatherhood to mental and physical health, the weight of empirical evidence is against Paul's assertions. Religious commitment has notably positive effects on the individual and collective levels of human society. Except for, you know, the gay people being killed and the women being forced to live under tarp and get beaten over and over, and the whole slavery thing, and healthcare is bad, don't give women epidurals when they're giving birth because God said they had to suffer. Except for all of that, right? We're not counting that, though, because that's in the Bible, and the Bible is true, so we should do those things. Particularly captivating, I bet it's not, is Gregory Rodriguez's Los Angeles Times article. Oh, it's a newspaper. That means it's science. About a study conducted by Northwestern University that starts to provide data and insight about why humans believe. The study, by psychology professor Dan P. McAdams and researcher Michelle Albaugh, was aimed at finding out about the religious sources of political leanings. While the study itself is fascinating, Gregory Rodriguez's media-based conclusions are noteworthy. Yes, a Los Angeles Times writer has media-based conclusions. How dare he not be a rigorous scientist, that journalist in a newspaper? The fury of the debate between faith and atheism leaves little room for an inquiry as to why 90% of Americans say they believe in God or supreme being, and more than 40% say they attend religious services each week. Actually, no. The fury of the debate does not leave little room. It leaves all the room in the world. The fury of the debate between religious people and atheists does not prevent you from finding out why 90% of Americans are retarded, or why 40% of them think wasting their time each week is a good idea. It does not prevent you from engaging in that inquiry. The study analyzes the results mostly in terms of political divisions. Statistically, non-religious people tend to be liberal, and religious people tend to be conservative, because conservatism is based on a supernatural force that drives everything. I'm being sarcastic, I'm being facetious there, but you get the point I'm making, right? Conservatives believe in God overwhelmingly. They don't think they have to protect the environment. They think God is going to protect them. If they do, they poison everything. So fuck education, fuck the EPA, fuck anything that doesn't lead to rich people getting richer and poor people dying the fuck off. No, whatever. The political findings are intriguing, but not nearly as interesting as the way the question and the answers it elicited get at deeper core issues. It appears that we do believe out of need, but it's not, as Marx suggested, primarily because of material deprivation. Instead, it looks as if faith answers fear, and many different kinds of fear, which we can begin to delineate in some detail. ... The quote ends. At the time of the writing, Rodriguez stated that 90% of Americans say they believe in God or a supreme being. Now let us consider upon what surely massive sample group the study was based. The Los Angeles Times stated that the researchers interviewed 128 devout Christians in and around Chicago. Oh, it's a massive group. Right. Do you have the funds for a newspaper which are going extinct? Maybe not so bad in whenever this was written, but it certainly is getting worse now that newspapers are going down the fucking toilet. No one's buying them. Do you think a newspaper has the funds to interview, say, 10,000 people? Do you know how much money you would have to pay just the one person to do that many interviews? Or, pay 100 people to do all those interviews in a limited amount of time? Do you have any idea how much that would fucking cost? So yeah, 128 is a pretty fucking decent group. And it's not 90% of Americans based on 128 devout Christians in and around Chicago. Statistically, it's actually now about 80% of Christians, and 128 is just a sample size. Congratulations on not knowing how statistics work. Fucker. Northwestern University actually states the Northwestern University study sample included 128 highly religious and politically active Americans who attend church regularly. Not only does the sample group represent a stunningly insignificant percentage of the population, or of the 90%, but it is a sample from a very limited locality. Yes, sample selection never takes any of that into account. It's just, hey, hey, everybody in this church, come here, we have a survey for you to fill out. No, you select at random in a group. And apparently this group excluded non-religious people, or actively selected devout Christians, I assume out of a wide variety. But hey, I don't know, because they just say, there's only 128 people, that's bad. Certainly we learn a whole lot more if we just keep asking ourselves, in as many new ways as possible, why it is that so many of us feel compelled to pray. No, we don't learn a whole lot more if we just sit there asking ourselves shit. I know that you like to quote stuff that makes, misquote stuff that makes your point for you, but come on, come the fuck on already. And let us not forget to ask, why is it that so many of us feel compelled not to pray? Right, 10% of the population is atheists. Why don't they feel compelled to pray? That's weird. The previously mentioned Professor Paul Vitz, didn't I call him a douchebag? Has provided some fascinating answers. They're not fascinating. In his book, Faith of the Fatherless, that piece of shit again. The article on the Northwestern University's News and Information website is even blunter in its conclusions. Political conservatives operate out of a fear of chaos and absence of order, while political liberals operate out of a fear of emptiness, a new Northwestern University study soon to be published in the Journal of Research in Personality finds. Right. Conservatives tend to believe in God. They tend to fear the idea that there's no God, there's no master plan, there's no guiding order force called God, while politically liberal people operate out of a fear of, if you don't run the country properly, everyone is gonna fucking die. What's your point? How is that blunt? I guess it is blunt against religious political conservatives, who are just shedding themselves out of things that, they're jumping at shadows, while liberals have maybe more justified fears. This framing, which appears to be the basic conclusion of the study, is a first-rate non sequitur. Really? It seems to follow actually pretty goddamn well. As Rodriguez puts it, they ask their subjects to describe what their lives in the world would be like if they did not have faith. Whatever faith means here, I mean, if Christians have never successfully demonstrated why faith is a good thing, or really given us a definition that always works that everyone can agree upon, then why not ask what faith means here? Apparently, political conservatives think that it would be that it would result in lives / a world of chaos and absence of order, and political liberals conceive operating out of a fear of emptiness. My eyes are hurting, I apologize. Political conservatives think that it would result in a world of chaos and absence of order, and political liberals conceive operating out of a fear of emptiness. Either the sentence was misquoted, or whoever wrote it was not very good. Yet, just because people believe chaos was a result, it would not mean that this is what they have faith. That this is why they have faith. Right. Just because people believe that if you don't have faith, the entire world will succumb to chaos and death and destruction, is not why they have faith in the first place. No. Yes, but no. Do we really know how political conservatives operate based on 128 Chicagoans? If you understand statistics, and this study was done in a statistically meaningful fashion, then yes. Fuck you. One can perhaps come to various conclusions as to what it says about Northwestern University, because non sequiturs that aren't actually non sequiturs are bad, but ad hominems are not, if you're a Christian doing it. The Los Angeles Times and about the media and academia in general. Right. 4 ad hominems mean you're right in your bullshit. However, one need only look at the quality of life of people who have lived or live in the states based on atheism. States based on atheism, not the states, but in states based on atheism, to see that atheism is no basis for a caring, prosperous, or social security. I predict Stalin, Mao, Hitler, and Pol Pot. I predict. Think about the various staunchly atheistic communist states such as Albania, Soviet Russia, North Korea, Pol Pot's Cambodia, etc. I was wrong. It's only Stalin and Pol Pot. Fuck. Really, North Korea is atheistic? Correction. They believe that the dead president, the grandfather of the currently fat guy who's in charge, who is dead, is still the president. The guy who's in charge now is just keeping his seat warm for him. They believe that he's the Messiah, that he's a super powerful being. They believe in a God. It's the grandfather, who is now dead, of the fatty, who just killed his uncle. So, no, North Korea is not atheistic. Albania and Soviet Russia were communist, but they were not staunchly atheistic. They were staunchly communist states. They were atheistic states that were staunchly communist. Do you see how putting your words in the right order matters? Or we could, oh, here it is. Or we could think of Nazi Germany. Thank you. At least I had 3 of them right. See below for more on the fruits of atheism in political systems. 11.9. Atheism and honesty. Atheism has no moral imperative for honesty, so it is not surprising that atheists figure prominently in fraud and deception, although it is difficult to find statistics on this issue. 2 things here. Atheism has no moral imperative for anything. Atheism is the lack of a belief in God. I guess you have completely abandoned, again, at this point, the whole grant the point and move on in the conversation thing. No, it's just atheists have no reason to be honest, and therefore it's not surprising that they're more frauds. Except they don't figure prominently. And the statistics are hard to find on this issue because the statistics that you can find will point the other way, as in the prison population being predominantly religious and only fractionally represented by atheists. Very few atheists are criminals. Religious people overwhelmingly, far more than either a random distribution, a fair and random distribution of the prison population would reveal, and way more than the stupid claim that atheists are all evil would lead you to believe. Religious people are the overwhelming majority, to the tune of over 90% in prisons, far more than the population is represented. And atheists are a tiny little fraction, 0.1 or 0.01%, something like that. It is tiny. So this idea that we are more fraudulent and more deceptive than the douchebags who end up in prison more often than us, the statistics might be hard to find because the statistics show that this is complete bullshit, and fuck you for lying, you dishonest piece of shit. Oh wait, isn't this about atheism and honesty? Who is more deceptive and fraudulent than the person who's saying that there's no statistics that are easy to find showing that atheists are liars? We're just lying about that, by the way. Who the fuck is lying here? There are many examples just in the history of the promotion of evolution. A particularly notorious example is that of Ernst Haeckel, a free thinker atheist who fraudulently doctored drawings of embryos of various creatures to make them look almost identical, and then claimed that this was evidence for evolution. No, he didn't claim that it was evidence for evolution. The similarity of embryos that is observable today in pictures, actual photographs taken that Ernst Haeckel would not have had access to given the time he lived in, not having access to very good photographic technology, if any at all. He did doctor the drawings a little bit to better represent the similarities. He didn't have to. He did, and that's why he's an idiot. But the one example they can list is, of course, Haeckel. Why? Because it's the go-to guy for these lying sacks of shit. He made at least 2 other fraudulent claims regarding the origin of life and a non-existent ape man. Oh, thank you for telling us that he made these fraudulent claims that you don't tell us what they were. He helped lay the foundations for Nazism in Germany. Really, he did. I am so sorely tempted here to click on the reference to see what they are twisting into making this accurate. Staff of Creation Ministries International had their reputation sullied by a deeply dishonest campaign conducted by an Australian Humanist of the Year. I bet you that they did not have their reputation sullied by a dishonest campaign, but rather by an honest one. And this is all they're saying. Oh, some humanist in Australia sullied their reputation. What did he say? Why was it wrong? What does it matter? This one guy that you're using as an example is proof of all atheists being more generally dishonest than you fucking lying sacks of shit? Excuse me if I object to this fucking piece of shit point that isn't even justified or elaborated upon, and immediately goes to 11.10 Incarceration. Vox Day wrote, I previously referenced the number of atheists being held by the prison system of England and Wales, where it is customary to record the religion of the prison population as part of the inmate information system. In the year 2000, there were 38,531 Christians of 21 different varieties imprisoned for their crimes, compared to only 122 atheists and 62 agnostics, meaning 184 atheists. As Europe in general, and the United Kingdom in particular, have become increasingly post-Christian, and good for them, this would appear to be a damning piece of evidence proving the fundamentally criminal nature of theists, while demonstrating that atheists are indeed more moral, despite their lack of a sky god holding them to account. Yes, exactly. I've been saying it over and over, and I'm so glad that they actually proved me right in this article by pointing out actual statistics in support from a country that I didn't have information about. There also happened to be another 20,639 prisoners, 31.6% of the total prison population, who possessed no religion. Would this include the Christians who say, I'm not religious, I just believe in Jesus? You know, the ones who would not be atheists or agnostics? Is that perhaps the prisoners, the kind of people that we're talking about who are not religious? There's a difference between atheists and non-religious people. All atheists are non-religious, but not all non-religious people are atheists, because, as I said, some non-religious people believe in Jesus. They don't go for that whole Roman Catholic bullshit. And this was not simply a case of people falling through the cracks or refusing to provide an answer. The inmate information system is specific enough to distinguish between Druids, Scientologists, and Zoroastrians, as well as between the Celestial Church of God, the Welsh Independent Church, and the other irrelevant church that I don't even know why they're listing names, because it means nothing to anybody. Okay, they can differentiate a lot. Great, good for them. It also features separate categories for other Christian religion. But again, if you believe that you are not religious, you don't believe in religion, but you believe in God and Jesus, you would not count as another Christian religion, because you reject the word religion, even though you are fucking religious. Other non-Christian religion and not known. But again, you know, other non-Christian religion, if you don't believe you are religious, even if you believe in Jesus, guess what? Your religion is Christianity. You're just too fucking stupid to know what the words mean. At only 0.2% of the prison population, high church atheists are, as previously suggested, extremely law-abiding. What the fuck is a high church atheist? But when one compares the 31.6% of imprisoned non-religionists to the 15.1% of Britons who checked none or wrote in Jedi Knight, agnostic, atheist, or heathen in the 2001 National Survey, it becomes clear that not understanding what words means that you can make a bad point and jerk yourself off with it. I'm skipping the rest of that because I've already explained why this is bullshit, and it's just more bullshit piled on top. His footnote states 3.84 times more likely, to be precise, of being convicted and jailed for committing a crime than a Christian. Whatever. Skipping it, whatever. The point is just bad, and feel free to read it for yourself. It's bullshit. It's piled on top of bullshit, and I just can't stand it anymore. 11.11 Atheism, Marriage, and Divorce. Very interestingly, I'll interrupt right here and say atheists are one of the groups that has the lowest rate of divorce. So this idea that atheism and marriage and divorce count as a point against atheism, already it's going to be bad. And I'm looking in advance here. They do point out that atheists divorce less than other religious groups. Michael Caputo on Atheism and Divorce wrote, very little else has produced as much euphoria in atheists than Christian researcher George Barna's announcement that born again and other Christians have a very high rate of divorce, while atheists have the lowest rate. Atheist websites immediately announced the glorious news worldwide. The divorce rates they published were the following: Jews, 30%, born-again Christians, 27%, other Christians, 24%, atheists, only 21%. Was George Barna quoted correctly? ... Yet the survey found that the percentage of atheists and agnostics who have been married and divorced is 37%, very similar to the numbers of the born-again population. Emphasis in original. The sample used by Barna was a bit less than 4,000. Oh, the sample size was not big enough. Statistics, motherfucker, do you learn it? Atheists and agnostic make up about 10% of the American population, 2% being atheists. No, 10% being atheists, 8% of which being ignorant about what the words mean. That means that about 400% of the people sampled were atheist agnostics, about 80 being atheists, 400 of them, on average, being atheists. This is hardly a sufficient sample to reach any reliable conclusion. The sample used by Barna is one thing, but the overall statistics that are accessible on perhaps the United States Census website that list divorce rates and religiosity, and you can compare the two. I don't think that I've actually gone to that particular page, but I'm sure you can find the information on divorce rates and percentages on religiosity and a correlation of the two in some sense. You might be able to do that for Canada as well. We have a census that keeps a lot of information like this. I actually worked for the census a year or two ago, and it was a very interesting experience. But you don't necessarily need a sample size to establish this. You can actually look at the whole population according to your census and come to a conclusion. So Barna's methodology here might be suspect more than the limited sample size of 400 people picked at random without any bias, meaning that you do have a representative sample. That's how statistics work, by the way. You pick at random with as little bias to your selection as possible so that you ensure you get a good selection. You want a representative sample, sure. But if you have 4,000 people and 10% of people are atheists, and you have 400 atheists, guess what? That is representative. This is hardly sufficient sample to reach any reliable conclusion if you are ignorant about how statistics work and are religious. According to Barna, 42% of adults who associated with a faith other than Christianity had cohabited, while atheists were the most likely to do so. Gee, I wonder why people who don't believe that they need to confirm their love for someone else by doing a pointless ritual to an imaginary man would not get married. I wonder why. Surely someone will come along and free me of this ignorance of why people who don't believe in God wouldn't do a God ritual. I wonder. It is critical to stress that it is a well-known fact that cohabitors experience a very high number of breakups before getting married. Good for them. Doesn't change the fact that, religious people divorce more. It may mean ultimately that the religious point of view that you meet someone, you marry them, and you stay with them for the rest of your fucking life is a huge problem. That's what it may mean. But, of course, understanding stuff requires intelligence, and Mariano, author of this article, has none. Millions of people believe that cohabitation is a prelude to marriage, and for many it is. However, Smock reports that 45% of cohabitations break up with no marriage. Another 10% continue cohabiting. So, yeah, if you cohabit with someone and you break up, then 10% will find it that, finding an apartment or something is too difficult, and they'll just stay together even though they don't work as a couple. Therefore, atheism is bad, right? Barna did not include this enlightening fact in his research. Well, he did include that fact, but it certainly isn't enlightening. Thus, if 21% of atheists divorce after marriage and 45% break up once or more before marriage, what we have is the astounding rate of about 66% of atheist couples experience at least one breakup. If, however, the number is 37%, then we have a shocking figure of 82%. Right. And since the born-again Christians are 27 instead of 21, then we have the, number of 72, if I'm counting right. 72% of atheists, born-again couples experience at least one breakup. The point is, atheists divorce less. Breakups are not the same fucking thing. Maybe arranged marriages have a really high rate of no breakups. Who the fuck cares? We're talking about marriage and divorce, related things like finding out who you should marry first instead of just marrying a bitch because you knocked her up, as religious people are wont to do. And I apologize for use of the bitch. I was trying to get into their shoes in that one. Maybe dating around before you eventually settle on someone and trying it out and not, finding out that it doesn't work is, again, a superior practice than just marrying the first one who comes along and then finding out it doesn't work, but feeling an obligation to God. What needs mentioning is the fact that many atheists do not cohabit as a prelude to marriage. So atheists cohabit more, but many of them do not cohabit. Well, you pointed out 51% earlier, so it's a minority. It's a very small minority. It's 49 to 51. That's almost half. But many atheists do not cohabit. Yes, half don't. So, a lot cohabit, and this is meaningful. And a lot don't cohabit, and that's meaningful. Everything is meaningful to you dumbasses who believe in magic, isn't it? They in fact see cohabitation as equivalent to any marriage relationship. These breakups were not included in the Barna research, because they don't technically count as breakups, and none of this is relevant to anything. The appellation Christian does not make. I have no idea what that sentence means. There are great numbers of people in this world who call themselves Christians, but have never internalized the teachings of Jesus Christ. So, in reality, 100% of Christians never divorce, and no one ever breaks up if they're a true Christian. When you can just define what counts and win, Recently, the Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life has published its mammoth study on religion in America based on 35,000 interviews. Let me guess, they're going to say the sample size is not sufficient to draw a conclusion. The results are quite enlightening in further elucidating the topic of atheism and divorce. According to the Pew Forum, a whopping 37% of atheists never marry, as opposed to 19% of the American population, 17% of Protestants, and 70% of Catholics. Oh, so Protestants and Catholics are not part of the American population. How enlightening. Not only do atheists cohabit and break up in very large numbers, they also do not marry in very large numbers. All emphasis by Caputo. And you know what else they don't do? They also don't cohabit in very large numbers. Scary, scary, or lies, damn lies, and statistics. You decide. Vox Day further notes the 2001 ERA study, a much larger study that reaches precisely the opposite conclusion. According to ERA's 2001, more than half of all atheists and agnostics don't get married. Didn't they just say this? It's not the opposite, it's the same conclusion. If one correctly excludes the never married from the calculation, then atheists are 58.7% more likely to get divorced than Pentecostals and Baptists, the two born-again Christian groups with the highest rate of divorce, and more than twice as likely to get divorced as Christians in general. Okay, are we excluding the Pentecostals and Baptists and the two born-again Christian groups with the highest rate? Are we excluding the people who don't marry out of those to come to the conclusion that 58.7% more likely are atheists than Pentecostals to get divorced? Are we doing that, or just making shit up and picking and choosing what we want to say in order to arrive to a conclusion? Whatever the error study is, sounds like bullshit, and that kind of sloppy messing around with numbers to make numbers bigger seems to be exactly the point of this bullshit, and the reason why they come to an opposite conclusion. So that's the end of chapter 11. Only 2 left, and I'll be right back for the next one.